Assalamu alaikum, boys. I hope everybody's doing okay. This is our last lesson for this week about Salahuddin, and next week we're going to start our novel. Okay? As you know, the last time where we left off, Salahuddin was trying to make a deal to rescue the Muslims from King Richard, and King Richard slaughtered 3,000 Muslims because Salahuddin was not able to come up with the money in time. All right, so let's fast forward here. Okay. In August of 1191, Richard marched Frankish troops about 130 kilometers south toward Jaffa, determined to capture it. During the trek, Salahuddin's archers attacked them unceasingly, which means the people with the bows and arrows, they were shooting bows and arrows at them, and they were not stopping. But Richard kept his men strong. Instead, Salahuddin's army grew weaker. They had been fighting for years, and they now faced a rested army from Europe, led by a brilliant military commander. So the people from Europe, they hadn't been fighting, but Salahuddin's army, if you remember, they were fighting in Egypt, they fought in Tripoli, they fought in Jerusalem, they fought for many years. So they were a bit tired, and for fighting for that many years, you don't live a proper life, you don't eat properly, you don't train properly. And the people coming from Europe, they were well rested, and they were strong because they came fresh. Salahuddin couldn't prevent Richard from capturing Jaffa and other coastal cities, so he took his army to Jerusalem to fortify it against the Franks. Frankish troops followed in January of 1192, but due to the brutal weather conditions, um, they were unable to reach the city and had to turn back. Then Richard found out that in his absence from England, his brother John was trying to seize his lands. Okay, so guys, where we are right now, King Richard took over the city of Jaffa, but Salahuddin, he realized, okay, let's leave Jaffa because they've already taken it. Instead of fighting them here, let's go back and protect Jerusalem, which is the most important city in this region. Okay, so they went back to Jerusalem and they were protecting that. Okay, and that includes Al-Aqsa Masjid and many very important places. So he went back there. So the Frankish troops, they tried to follow him there to back to Jerusalem. However, they were unable to do so because of the weather. And then Richard, the Lionheart, the one he's supposed to be so brave, what happened? He found out that in his absence from England, his brother, King Prince John, which in Robin Hood he's the character of Prince John, was trying to seize his lands, which we saw in Robin Hood, right? He was trying to take over with the sheriff. That's what you saw. So what was happening in England? Prince John was trying to become King John, and King Richard decided to return home with his troops. Okay, but before he did, he tried once more to take Jerusalem. So what happened? He said, "Okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go fight my brother John and become the king again, and maybe he'll meet Robin Hood if Robin Hood exists." Um, but before that, he said he was gonna go try and take Jerusalem. The story goes that he beheld it from outside the city, realized he didn't have a big enough army, and turned away. So he ran away. He came to Jerusalem, and because Salahuddin was waiting there and was ready there, what happened? King Richard, he ran away. Salahuddin's brother negotiated a truce with Richard. So Salahuddin's brother was the one he talked to Richard and he said, okay, let's make some peace. And Salahuddin and Richard actually they never really met. Okay, the truce was signed on September 2nd of 1192 and it lasted for 3 years. Salahuddin's his terms were very generous. He allowed the Franks to keep the coast between Tyre and Jaffa, and the rest of the land, including Jerusalem, would be Muslim land. But Christians would be allowed free access to holy places. That truce ended the Third Crusade. So he made a deal with them. He says, okay, you guys can come do business, you guys can come pray, but no fighting. Salahuddin's honorable conduct won him enduring respect and appreciation from the Christian world. Okay, so here is the mausoleum that houses Salahuddin's tomb. It was built in 1193 and restored in 1898. Okay, so boys, this is where his qabr is. Okay, uh, and after this he goes back home to Damascus. Okay, after the truce was signed, Salahuddin went home to Damascus. He died just 6 months later on March 4th of 1193 at the age of 55 or 56. Because he never cared much for money or a lavish life, he gave everything away. So there was no money for a proper burial. So can you believe that? This big sultan, this great leader, Salahuddin, he didn't even have enough money to bury himself properly. He was later buried in a mausoleum built by his son in Damascus. After Salahuddin's death, his family continued to rule over Egypt and nearby lands until 1250, when another group gained power. Jerusalem remained mostly under Muslim rule for centuries. An honorable leader, Salahuddin was and continues to be revered by the Muslim world for uniting them and for reclaiming Jerusalem for Islam. Despite the fact that Christians lost control of Jerusalem to him, many also held Salahuddin in high esteem. Regardless of religion, people recognized Salahuddin as a notable leader, fierce in battle and compassionate to friend and foe alike. So he was nice to everybody. Even if you were his enemy, he still was fair. He was highly regarded throughout Europe and the Middle East as a man of great integrity, intellect, and military skill, who was generous to his enemies and who inspired respect in everyone he met. When Salahuddin was near death, he told his oldest son, I have become as great as I am because I have won men's hearts by gentleness and kindness. Boys, he is a military man. He was involved in many, many wars, but he believes that he was great because he was gentle, he was kind, he was nice to people. Salahuddin set an example of an honorable leader during his lifetime, and he continues to set an example today. A statue of Salahuddin on horseback stands today in Damascus in the south of Syria. Okay, here's a small brief timeline of Salahuddin's life. He was born in 1137, okay, in Tikrit, okay, and then his father was working for the Sultan, and then he became a worker for the Syrian ruler Nur al-Din. When Nur al-Din died, so Nur al-Din died, and hold on, sorry, Nur al-Din died way later. Sorry. Okay, in 1169 he became a vizier of Egypt and the commander of the Egyptian troops. In 1174, Nur al-Din dies and Salahuddin launches an effort to unite the Muslim states. This is when he started fighting for Jerusalem. In 1185, he succeeds in uniting the Muslim states. In 1187, he recaptured Jerusalem after a 2-week siege. Also in 1187, he had the Battle of Hattin, and in 1189, the Third Crusade began when King Richard came. He beat him. The siege of the Akka lands was in 1191, and in 1192 the Battle of Jaffa ends. In 1193 he died. So just after he won, he died himself. Okay, but he had the truce between King Richard in 1192. So he had a very busy life. He was fighting a lot of it. But mashallah, he lived a great life, and he's been a very inspirational leader for us. And next week we're going to start reading a novel about him. So I hope you've enjoyed learning about him this week. And I'm going to probably put up a form where you guys can reflect on your understanding of Salahuddin. All right, take care, boys.